Emily stared out the rain-streaked window, the soft patter against the glass matching the unease twisting in her stomach. She had come to her grandmother Margaret's house for a quiet weekend, expecting warmth and comfort, but instead, she found herself facing something far more complicated. Across from her, Margaret sat with a calm elegance that hid decades of secrets, her hands wrapped around a teacup that trembled slightly in her grip. "Grandma," Emily began, her voice low and hesitant, "are you really sure about this?" "I'm not so certain." Margaret's eyes softened, a mixture of sadness and quiet strength reflecting back at Emily. She took a deep breath, as if summoning memories she had kept buried for years, memories of a younger life filled with longing, choices, and the kind of love that could lift you up and break you at the same time. Emily leaned forward instinctively, drawn into the story that had begun even before she was born, sensing the weight behind every word her grandmother was about to share. Margaret's voice trembled ever so slightly as she spoke, describing the life she had led in a lakeside town, the love she had felt for a man who was not her husband, the magnetic pull of connection that had been both thrilling and forbidden, and the secret letters exchanged in the quiet moments of early mornings and dusky evenings. She spoke of the tension of keeping her heart divided between stability and desire, the quiet heartbreak of stolen glances, and the ache of wanting more than life had offered. Emily's curiosity and anxiety battled inside her. She wanted to step back from the story, yet every word drew her closer, a mix of fascination and unease that left her breathless. Margaret's tale was not filled with drama or anger, but with the raw, tender reality of a heart struggling to reconcile love, loyalty, and longing. Emily felt as if she could almost hear the echoes of that younger Margaret in the room with them now, the whispered conversations, the flutter of notes hidden in books, the quiet yearning that never crossed the line into harm but lingered as an unspoken truth. The storm outside intensified slightly, the thunder a subtle punctuation to the storm brewing in Margaret's memories, a reflection of the emotions Emily felt swirling within herself. There was a rhythm to the confession, a push and pull of tension and release, as Margaret's words painted vivid pictures of autumn mornings in Vermont, the crisp air along the lakeside, the way sunlight glinted off the water when she had met Daniel, the man whose presence had awakened feelings she thought she had buried forever. Emily imagined the small bookstore where their paths had first crossed, the hush of shelves and the faint smell of old paper, the quiet intensity of stolen conversations that never needed to be spoken aloud to be understood. Margaret's story revealed a love that existed in shadows, tender and romantic, full of hope and pain, and Emily realized how fragile hearts could be, how complex love could feel even when it was unspoken, restrained, or impossible. With every word, Margaret wove a tapestry of longing and self-discovery, one that left Emily both captivated and unsettled, sensing that what she was hearing was not just a tale of infidelity, but a reflection of human vulnerability, the choices we make, and the consequences we live with. By the time Margaret paused, taking a sip of the now cold tea, Emily felt a shiver of anticipation for what was to come, the quiet tension leaving her eager yet anxious, realizing that the next chapter of her grandmother's story would reveal the kind of emotional depth and heartache that could linger for a lifetime, a story that would test the boundaries of love, loyalty, and the human heart itself. Margaret's story picked up in the crisp, golden days of autumn in Vermont, where the air smelled of fallen leaves and the lake reflected the soft light of early mornings, and she was 24, full of dreams and quiet restlessness, married to a kind man but longing for something deeper, a spark that made her heart race and her thoughts wander. It was on one misty morning, while wandering into a small, tucked-away bookstore, that she met Daniel, a local artist whose smile was warm and eyes calm like a lake, and from the moment their hands brushed over the same book, a current ran between them that neither could deny, though both understood the danger of what it could mean, yet they kept returning to each other, drawn by conversation, shared laughter, and the sense that they were finally seen in a way no one else had ever looked at them. And over the following weeks, their interactions grew into a quiet ritual of secret notes slipped between pages, brief meetings along the lakeside, and whispered words under the golden canopy of autumn trees, each encounter leaving Margaret flushed with excitement and weighted with guilt, as she wrestled with the love she felt for Daniel and the life she had already promised to her husband, her days now a delicate balance of stolen moments and silent longing, feeling alive in ways she hadn't known since she was a young girl, and yet every time she returned home, the comfort of her marriage felt heavy, the silence of routine suffocating, making her heart ache for the connection she shared with Daniel, and she realized that love was not simple, that it could exist in multiple forms at once, tender, forbidden, and transformative. And in the quiet corners of her mind, she replayed their conversations, the way Daniel's eyes seemed to understand her without words, the way his laughter lingered in her chest long after he had gone, and even though she tried to focus on her husband's kind gestures, she couldn't stop thinking about the thrill and warmth of this new connection, feeling herself caught between loyalty and desire, the emotional tug-of-war leaving her restless at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining what might happen if she followed her heart or if she remained in the safety of what she already knew. And Emily, listening in the present day, could almost feel the crisp autumn wind, smell the old books in the bookstore, hear the faint splash of the lake nearby, and sense the tension in Margaret's young heart, understanding how forbidden attraction could be both painful and exhilarating, how a simple touch or glance could create a lifetime of longing. And as Margaret described the stolen walks along the shore, the quiet exchanges of glances across crowded streets, the whispered laughter that made everything else disappear, Emily felt the intensity of emotions her grandmother had carried, realizing that love was messy, complicated, and often hidden, existing in the spaces between words and moments. And just as Margaret's voice grew soft, describing a particular morning when she and Daniel sat by the lake in silence, feeling the world shrink to the two of them, Emily's heart thumped in anticipation, knowing that the story was moving toward a point where choices would have to be made, hearts would be tested, and the simple yet profound truth of longing and connection would reveal itself, leaving her unable to turn away from the story, caught in the beauty, danger, and undeniable pull of a love that was as intoxicating as it was impossible, a love that would shape her grandmother's life and leave an imprint on Emily's understanding of the human heart. As the weeks passed, Margaret and Daniel's connection deepened in ways that were both thrilling and quietly painful, their secret letters becoming the lifeline of emotions she could not express anywhere else, each carefully folded note slipping between pages of borrowed books, carrying words of longing, hope, and admiration, never explicit but full of the intensity of hearts discovering a rare, forbidden closeness, and yet every word brought a mix of joy and guilt that gnawed at her quietly, because she knew that her life with her husband was built on trust, stability, and years of shared memories, and the knowledge of what she was feeling for Daniel could never be fully revealed without shaking the foundation of everything she had promised. So she balanced each day carefully, laughing with her husband at dinner, attending the town's weekly gatherings, and sharing in ordinary moments that now carried a strange undercurrent of tension, while her mind replayed every glance and every smile exchanged with Daniel, the quiet brush of hands in a bookstore, the way his eyes seemed to see her in a way no one else could, and sometimes she caught herself daydreaming during chores or walks, imagining conversations that had not happened, replaying the sweetness of a moment too precious to disturb with reality. And then one afternoon, the fragile bubble of secrecy shattered when her husband found a letter hidden in a book she had left on the table. The confrontation that followed was quiet but devastating, a heavy silence that filled the room, not with shouting or anger, but with the slow, unbearable weight of things left unsaid, and Margaret felt her chest tighten, realizing how fragile the balance of her life had been, how easily desire and longing could threaten everything she had built, and in that moment, the world seemed to pause, leaving her with the stark choice of heart and duty, of what could be and what must be, while Daniel's letters remained tucked away in memory, proof of a love that existed in shadow, alive in emotion but impossible to act upon. And Margaret's days became a blur of internal struggle, navigating between stolen thoughts of Daniel and the reality of her commitments, feeling the ache of love unfulfilled yet transformative, every glance from her husband tinged with awareness, every touch weighted with what could never be spoken, and through it all, she discovered the depth of human emotion, the way hearts could stretch across longing and loyalty, teaching her empathy, patience, and the bittersweet beauty of restrained desire, and Emily, listening from the present, felt the tension coil in her own chest, understanding how love was not always a simple choice, how intimacy could exist without action, and how the consequences of even gentle affection could echo through lives in unexpected ways, and Margaret's voice, soft but steady, conveyed the profound realization that love, in its truest form, was not always about possession or fulfillment, but about connection, understanding, and the courage to face the consequences of the heart's desires. And just as she paused, Emily could sense the story teetering on the edge of a turning point, a moment where decisions would shape the rest of a life, where longing would meet reality, and where the quiet heartbreak of impossible love would transform into wisdom, resilience, and the bittersweet understanding of how deeply a human heart can feel, leaving Emily breathless with anticipation for the resolution that her grandmother had yet to reveal, knowing that the next chapter would carry the full weight of choice, sacrifice, and the enduring echo of a love that could never fully be, yet would never truly fade. Margaret's final choice came quietly, like the gentle shift of sunlight across the lakeside where she had first met Daniel, and she knew with a clarity born from months of longing and reflection that she could not continue the affair, not because the feelings were false, they were real, tender, and alive, but because the consequences would ripple through lives she cared about. And so she arranged to see Daniel one last time under the autumn sky, the air crisp, the mist curling above the lake, and they spoke softly, exchanging words heavy with affection, regret, and understanding, knowing that this moment would linger forever in memory even though it would never again cross into daily life, and Margaret felt a mix of relief and grief as she walked away, her heart full yet tempered by the weight of responsibility, a strange peace settling over her as she returned to the familiar routines of home, noticing the small gestures of her husband, the quiet patience in his eyes, and the subtle warmth in his voice that now seemed infused with a new appreciation, and she began to rebuild the intimacy and trust that had wavered, realizing that love could take many forms, that longing could exist alongside loyalty, and that life's most profound lessons often came from choices that hurt yet healed, and in this process, she learned the beauty of forgiveness, not just for others, but for herself, understanding that desire, attraction, and the human heart's need for connection were natural and not shameful, and she carried Daniel's memory as a gentle, private warmth, a reminder of a love that had shaped her soul without destroying her life, teaching her about passion, restraint, and the depth of emotional honesty. And Emily, listening to her grandmother in the present, felt a mixture of awe and empathy, seeing the complexity of her grandmother's life, the courage it took to walk away from something that felt perfect in the moment, and the wisdom to value the love she had committed to while cherishing the beauty of what could not be. And as Margaret described returning to her home, tending to small everyday joys, reconnecting with friends, and sharing quiet laughter with her husband, Emily understood how life could hold multiple layers of love, regret, and fulfillment simultaneously, and she realized that happiness was not always about never feeling longing or temptation, but about understanding one's heart, making deliberate choices, and finding peace in the life one had chosen. And Margaret's voice grew soft, almost a whisper, as she reached for Emily's hand, her eyes glistening with tears of reflection and hope, telling her, "Darling, the heart is fragile, it will want, it will ache, it will reach for things that may not be ours, but every choice teaches us how to love, how to forgive, and how to carry the weight of our feelings with grace." And Emily felt the truth in those words settle inside her, a warmth spreading through her chest, the storm of emotions that had built through the story now resolving into a quiet clarity, and as the rain outside had finally stopped, leaving the world fresh and calm, Emily understood that love, in all its forms, longing, loyalty, passion, regret, and renewal, was a living, breathing thing, full of beauty and complexity, and that her grandmother's story, though tinged with sadness and sacrifice, was ultimately a testament to the enduring power of the human heart to feel deeply, choose wisely, and find peace, leaving Emily with a sense of connection to the past, hope for the future, and a profound respect for the quiet courage it took to navigate a life filled with love in all its messy, beautiful forms.